Stop! This video contains doll nudity that some viewers may find offensive. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey, welcome to Select Arcane. The Cayman Islands have been my home away from home for about 13 years. It started with my father teaching at the University College of the Cayman Islands. Then it blossomed into my parents buying a vacation home on Grand Cayman. It kind of surprises me that I've never really combined the Cayman Islands and my model horse hobby, but I'm going to change that right now. On my last trip during Easter, I stopped at my local Blackbeard's liquor store and found these insane drink holders. They're supposed to float in your pool. And then I got an idea because I have a live show coming up. I absolutely need to incorporate them into a performance setup. And it just so happens that last summer I went with my friends to a lake and one friend got towed around in a kayak. So I mean, there has to be somebody on the internet who did the exact same thing, but on a flamingo or a swan. Nailed it. So now that I have photographic evidence of somebody else doing this, I can now make a performance entry about it. But I don't have a doll, so I need to make one. These bodies are from KC's Galloping Gals, the hobby's #1 source for 1/9 scale dolls to customize. I have all 3 body colors and face styles, but this time I'm going to go back to the Native American doll. The reason being, she does not have articulated ankles, and in this case she's not really going to be a riding doll. This is the exact same body that I used to create Nadine, so I need to take a completely new approach to make somebody new. Firstly, the most underutilized addition that comes with these dolls is the upgraded bust size. Yes, you heard that right. I take some boiling water and then dump her head in. This helps soften the vinyl so I can pop her head off. I also pop her arms off at the shoulders. And without much effort, I pop her original bust off of her body. Everything clicks back into place with very little effort, but I am leaving her head off for a little bit. I take this opportunity while her head is being boiled to rip her hair out. Usually I would cut all this hair off and then pull out through the neck hole, but for some reason I forgot to cut it, so all this long hair has to go through the neck hole, which took over an hour. Now that she's nicely bald, it's time to choose her hair. But unfortunately, I wasn't vibing with the hair that I had in my collection. Anything too dark just seemed like another copy of Nadine, and any of my pastel or rainbow colors just didn't fit with what I wanted. So I went in a completely new direction. But before we get to that, let's talk about the body. This girl is going to be swimming in a bathing suit, and she's going to have a lot of skin showing, so I need to sand off all of these seams. I also need to prep her for a plethora of tattoos. I sand every single part I can reach with 180 grit sanding sponge. This is just to allow the pigments to stick to her body. Next up is a bath with anti-grease dish soap, and after she's dry, I spray her in Dullcoat. Usually I use Mr. Super Clear, but it's been really rainy and damp, and MSC is just too unpredictable, so I'm going to try Dullcoat in this case. While her body dries, let's move back to that hair. The inspiration comes from box braids. The Cayman Islands is a melting pot of different cultures. There are people from Jamaica, different islands, the US, Canada, the Philippines, a ton of different places. So in this case, I want to give her more of a Jamaican vibe. These curtain tie-back tassels are the perfect box braids in this case. I cut them and lay the individual strands on a sandwich bag. I use tacky glue at the ends and smooth down that glue with a paintbrush. Leaving that to dry, I move over to the face. I'm pulling out my 2-part Apoxie Sculpt. And yes, we're going to be customizing a face. This is my first time ever, by the way. Unfortunately, the Native American doll the Casey's Galloping Gals has is the only dark-skinned doll in the lineup. I would have preferred this girl to be a lot darker, but I'm a bit limited on what I have. But what I can change is to give her a more Caribbean facial profile. Using a reference off screen, I smooth over the epoxy onto her face using a little bit of water. I'm using color shavers that I got from a sculpting supply store to move the clay around her face. It doesn't look like much now, but it will once I color match her skin tone. After about 2 hours, the epoxy is fully cured and ready for sanding. I do my best to blend the epoxy into her face so that the customization does not look very noticeable. By this time, my box braid wefts are dry and ready for application. This time I take my X-Acto knife and make 2 cuts into the head instead of my usual 1. I actually want her scalp to be showing here because that's just the style of the braids. I stick the wefts into her head on each side and apply the glue to her head. I like using a toothpick for this part to have as much control as possible. Then I lay the braids down individually onto her head. This is certainly my slowest rerouting I've ever done. But I think the results are worth it because I've honestly never seen another box braided doll at this scale. I'm not sure why I didn't record the part prior to this, but essentially I wiped off her factory paint with 100% acetone, washed it with soap and water, and then applied acrylic paint to the best of my abilities in the same color of her skin tone. Now I'm using an extra piece of cloth to wrap up her hair to protect it. I take the head outside and spray with Dullcoat. Yeah, it's still raining and I really just don't trust MSC in this case. Starting the shading and highlighting first, I'm using my Mungyo soft pastels from Korea. They're really pigmented and you don't really need a lot of effort to apply them. I add dark contouring under her cheekbones and also to hide those modifications, and add a bit of reds and pinks to her forehead and cheeks. She's been out in the sun after all, sunbathing, running around the beach, playing in the water, so I want her to have that summer vibe. Next I use a watercolor pencil to sketch out her eyebrows. I want her to have a friendly expression, unlike my last doll, Karen. And then next I go in with my gouache paints to sketch in her eye whites, irises, and any sort of details. Gouache is like a hybrid of acrylics and watercolors, where you have the opacity of acrylics, but you can wipe away mistakes like watercolors. Sometimes it takes me a few tries to get it right. By the way, of course I'm referencing an image off screen to get all the facial details correct. I add some final freckles with a watercolor pencil, and then I can take her out for another round of sealant. While I have the watercolor pencils out, let's work on those tattoos. Because I want this to be a Cayman Islands themed doll, I want all of her tattoos to be linked to the islands. There are 3 islands that make up the chain: Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman. And technically I should be pronouncing them as Cayman, but that's just a flaw I have. So what is Cayman known for? It's known for its turtle farm that breeds and releases green turtles back into the oceans. It's known for its Stingray City, which is a sandbar where you can go snorkeling or diving, and also where you can interact and feed friendly wild stingrays. It's known for its endangered Cayman Brac parrot, which is green, and there's a sanctuary in East End, Grand Cayman. And of course, it's known for its romanticized version of the Caribbean: mermaids, palm trees, island life, you name it. I try to incorporate all of these things into these tattoos. I did intend to give her wings on her back like parrot wings, but instead I went for a big stingray. I also added a compass on her wrist, which so happens to point to the Cayman Islands, a palm tree and island life on her ankle, the word Tortuga on her lower back, which just so happens to be Cayman's most famous rum company, and some flowers like hibiscus and bougainvillea on her upper arm. I also added some unmentionable features. Bringing out the Mungyo soft pastels again, I do her body blushing. This not only helps breathe life into the doll, but it also helps pull together her face color and body color. You know, after I did the modifications, her face color changed a little bit. I make sure to add some sunburnt areas like her collarbones, her shoulders, and the back of her neck, because, you know, she's out in the sun. She also gets her abs highlighted because clearly she works out. All gets sprayed again in protective Dullcoat. Now it's time to finally get this girl dressed. I don't have a pattern, and I'm gonna have to make one from scratch, but I think we all know how that goes for me, so yeah, it's what you can expect. Essentially, I sketched a really bad pattern, found some really obnoxious rainbow tie-dye fabric at Walmart, in bathing suit form actually, and try my best to finagle a bikini out of this. The entire thing is made up of thread, bathing suit fabric, tacky glue, and embroidery thread.
That's so lame!
Oh, that's awful, isn't it?
That is so bad!
Oh, God, you're right, it's terrible.
Make a better one. I can't accept that. That is horrible! I'm not making fun of you, it looks really funny.
I think the downfall was the larger bust size. I just couldn't take into account how big they were. Is it good? No. Is it passable for a performance setup? Yeah, I guess so. After getting laughed at a few more times, I really did fix the bathing suit, honestly. I trimmed up a few things and I glued down that top part so nothing fell out. So let's reunite that head to the body. She was so close to being done, but then I had to take a trip down to Florida for work. So it was only obvious that I would take her with me. In my hotel room under poor lighting, I finished some sandals for her, made her a little anklet, and I kept struggling to find beads that would actually fit her hair. 11th scale was the perfect size, I just couldn't get them on, so I had to move over to 6. And she's done! Meet Savannah. Savannah is a suburb of Town, the original capital of Grand Cayman. I drive through it all the time on my way to my parents' vacation house. I really love how she turned out. My favorites, of course, being the hair, the sandals, her face, and the low being her bathing suit. One day, I will figure out how to make it properly. I would love to know what you think about Savannah. For those of you wondering, did the Dullcoat hold up compared to MSC? Well, she did fall into that pool, so yes, worked really well actually. Do you think she looks completely unique from Nadine, or too much of the same? If you like Savannah and feel inspired to visit the Cayman Islands, please like and subscribe. You can find me on Instagram @SelectArcane or on Facebook by the same name. Thanks for watching. Bye!